are demanding similar restrictions. Other global cities have gone further. New York, for instance, uses bird birth control. Singapore fines feeders. Germany replaces eggs with dummies to keep numbers in check. So why are Indian cities struggling so much with the fallout of overfeeding, and how much of a health risk, most importantly, are we talking about here? Before we give you all of these answers, let's go across to this ground report filed by my colleague Kohina that shows you the several realities surrounding bird droppings in our country. Take a look.
Well, feeding pigeons feels peaceful, right? Yes, it does. But what if I told you this act of kindness could literally be taking your breath away? Yes, you heard that right. These peace birds are the most pampered, yet the most problematic citizens and residents of the city. Let me explain how. These fluttery feathers is a perfect, mesmerizing, candid moment for your morning reels, right? No. Prolonged exposure to bird feathers could be leading to pulmonary lungs diseases. Yes, you heard that right. Also, these bird poopings or the pigeon poops that you see, if they drop on your car, it could erode the first layer of paint. Yes, it is acidic enough due to a lot of uric acid. Now the second part and the interesting part, now when this poop dries away, it also is getting converted into dust particles which you eventually inhale. So despite such mess, stink and chaos, why are we still feeding this toxic love story? Let's find out.
इनका सब कुछ अगर हम सब नहीं सोचेंगे तो इनको कहाँ से खाना पीना दाना मिलेगा। तो ये सब है कि सभी लोग मैं हूँ और मेरे जैसे बहुत लोग आते हैं डालने के लिए। शांति मिलती है कि चलो यार किसी का पेट भर रहा है, लेकिन हालांकि हमारी इतनी औकात नहीं है कि हम कुछ कर पाएँ, लेकिन मन को शांत करने के लिए और इनको भूखा देखा नहीं जाता।
While compassion is pouring freely, health experts say that the droppings that follow could cause serious lung infections. From simple allergies to hypersensitivity pneumonitis, it's more dangerous than it actually looks. By overfeeding these pigeons, we have changed their diet, made them dependent on us for food, and clearly we have also disrupted the local ecosystem. So we try and reach out to the experts to tell us how.
First of all, the pigeon that we're talking about are the feral version of the blue rock pigeon, which is found in the wild as well. And these are birds that are sort of urbanized over the decades or centuries, and they've got used to being artificially fed. Now, in an urban environment like Mumbai, there is availability of water, there is a lot of shelter. All the modern buildings are constructed in such a way that roosting sites and nesting sites and everything are found in abundance.
It's not just an environmental concern, it's a civic headache too. RWA members say that the droppings clog drains, damage buildings and make maintenance a nightmare.
Big challenge for society just because of increase in numbers and population, we can say, right? They are creating multiple issues in society. Just one first issue is their droppings, right? Which will create a dirt to the regular residents, which we observe in the society. They are residents and they are feeling just because of issues in their balconies, right? Common areas, stairs, and the vehicles they are placing, right? So their dropping will create extra amount which need to pay by RWA, right? By cleaning to the society, providing clean atmosphere, right? Then the drainage system also gets choked just because of these dirts.
So, from clogged drains to corroded cars and now even compromised air, our little acts of kindness seem to be piling up in all the wrong ways. Maybe it's time we rethink what compassion really looks like in a concrete jungle.
Okay, on that note, and to answer all of those questions, joining us this morning is Dr. Vivek Nangia, Head of Pulmonology at Max Saket Healthcare. Good morning, Dr. Vivek. Thank you for being with us here. A story that perhaps has gone under-recognized, would you say, because there's so much harm that comes with these pigeon droppings, and not just pigeons, there are other birds as well. So first up, answer that question for us. What do these pigeon droppings do to our lungs? So for instance, a pigeon dropping is in your home surroundings. gets dried up, somehow enters your lung. What happens next, Dr. Vivek?
Thank you and a very good morning to all of you. It's really a pleasure to be on this very prestigious show. So, pigeon droppings, which we innocuously think that, they can be harmless, actually can be very, very harmful and can even be life-threatening if they continue to lead into a progressive kind of a disease. So, as soon as the pigeon droppings dry up, they start to, disseminate into the air. And when you inhale those particles, they actually go deep inside the lungs and then can start off with just an allergic reaction like precipitating an asthma kind of an attack. They could lead to a disseminated kind of an infection with two kinds of fungi, which is again very complex and difficult to manage. One is cryptococcosis and the other is histoplasmosis. And third, and the most common reaction is an hyperallergic response. It's also called an extrinsic allergic alveolitis or a hypersensitivity pneumonitis or a bird fancier's disease or a pigeon fancier's disease. And this is not only restricted to the pigeon droppings, but also to parrot droppings and other bird droppings. They basically result in a very hyper allergic response inside the body, which again could start with just a mild cough, breathlessness, and progress to what is called a fibrotic kind of a state in the lungs, which could actually be irreversible and life-threatening. I'm sure even during COVID, most of us would have heard of the fibrosis happening in the lungs.
Yeah.
So this is also one of those diseases which can end up into fibrosis. By fibrosis, we actually mean that the normal lung tissue is being replaced by a scar tissue. So lungs are becoming non-functional. Portions of the lungs are becoming non-functional over a period of time. And as this area of non-functionality goes on increasing inside the lungs, obviously it results in respiratory failure and finally requiring oxygen, ventilatory support, and death. So this is the usual sequelae in this kind of an illness, if not arrested, diagnosed, and treated in time.
Okay, how much exposure to bird droppings then is dangerous, would you say? And at what point should one watch out for some of these signs that must encourage them to go visit a doctor, ask the doctor to get some of those tests done because there are bird droppings in their surroundings?
So there's no quantification as to how much the dropping has to be. It could just be one single exposure to a large quantum that could precipitate this, or it could be over a period of time. It could be either way. But then if somebody develops a cough, develops breathlessness, which is lasting more than 2 weeks, I think that's an indication enough to approach a doctor and get this diagnosed and treated. No cough longer than 2 weeks should ever be ignored. It could be just a simple infection, tuberculosis, asthmatic cough, and so many other differences. Along with one of them could be a hypersensitivity pneumonitis too.
Okay. Dr. Vivek, do people not end up confusing? And this is something I'm asking you of the experience you've had with several of your patients who you may have perhaps scolded and said, you should have come to me a little sooner. You should have not just passed this on as an allergic reaction, just taken an anti-allergic. Has that happened? And how do you normally go about those cases? Because a lot of people would say breathlessness or cough or chest congestion or heaviness is perhaps being triggered because of season change, or if they're an asthma patient, then they're going to simply negate it, no?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. So that is why they need to be more careful with their symptoms. If there's somebody who already has an underlying disease like asthma or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and they develop any kind of worsening in their symptoms, they should not take it lightly. Anybody who does not have any underlying disease and then ends up having a cough which is just lasting a little longer, and also the character of the cough would be a little different. This would be dry. This would happen more after getting exposed to the pigeon droppings, and especially if there are recurrent exposure, then the chances are that it is going to end up into a prolonged kind of a state. So as I said, any cough, any breathlessness, any chest tightness which is lasting more than 2 weeks, for that, one must approach a healthcare physician and get this addressed immediately.
Okay, now all those wondering, Dr. Vivek, that is this a real thing? Because, we played out some of those reactions in that ground report. When you typically ask people not to feed pigeons, not to encourage this, not to imbalance the natural phenomena, and how many pigeons are actually supposed to coexist with human beings in and around, they would say that this is an act of compassion, that their religious duties also seek them to go ahead and feed the pigeons on a regular basis. So just to educate all of us today, tell us why it is important that we keep our surroundings clean? More importantly, keep our surroundings clean, and how should we go about that? So for instance, if there are pigeon droppings in your home space, in your balconies, what are the ways you should go about cleaning it?
Right. So I think there are two aspects to it. One is that should we be feeding the pigeons or not? See, we have to understand that this is not their natural way of getting their feeds. We are artificially feeding them, resulting in an overpopulation. And some of these grains also have some processed stuff involved in it, which could further harm the health of the pigeons actually. So if at all we have to look at it from a compassionate point of view, probably we should think of donating it to, food shelters, or probably creating more of animal shelters for them, and probably creating some kind of a sanctuary where they could all be diverted rather than having them in your day-to-day lives and your day-to-day activities. Pigeon droppings can be very harmful, as I just said, and it is important to, if you have a lot of them in the surrounding, then best thing is to avoid them as much as possible. If the direct contact is not avoidable, then I guess you have to handle it with wearing a proper protection gear, like wearing a mask, N95 mask, if possible, a helmet as well. And then you should actually be wet cleaning it, moisten it with water first, because it's the dry poop that actually gets inhaled into the system. So you have to wet it first with water, sprinkle it with water, and only then clean it.
Okay.
And even when you're doing that, you should be wearing your gloves, you should be wearing your mask, and limit the access of pigeons. There are enough of these devices now that are available, the spikes that are available that you can keep on your parapets and in your balconies that would avoid the pigeons from sitting there. And of course, hand hygiene is very, very essential. If you've been anywhere near the parapet, touched anywhere, then you must wash your hands properly with soap and water.
Is it just pigeon droppings or perhaps pigeon feathers as well? Should we watch
Pigeon
out for
feathers
that?
as well, yes.
Okay.
Pigeon feathers can also trigger off an allergic reaction.
Okay, Dr. Vivek, what about immunocompromised people, for instance, or people with lung conditions already? Are they at a higher risk of damaging their lungs due to this kind of exposure to pigeon droppings?
So we call them the high-risk group or the vulnerable group, who would always be prone to developing any kind of an hyper reaction to, anything in the environment, whether it's the air pollution or the pigeon droppings or the viral infections like COVID, influenza, anything and everything. So this high-risk group or the most vulnerable group would include people who are elderly, like more than 60 years in age, children less than 5 years in age, those who have any kind of an immunocompromised state, like diabetes, kidney disease, heart disease, those who are on regular medicines like chemotherapies, steroids, those suffering with HIV and other kind of conditions, those who already have a pre-existing lung disease like asthma, COPD, interstitial lung disease. So these are the people who would definitely be more prone and definitely need to be more careful and follow all the possible precautions as far as exposure to not only the pigeon droppings but the entire environment is concerned. They have to keep the environment very, very hygienic and clean.
So if let's say someone has been coughing for 2 weeks and there is a significant exposure to pigeon droppings in their surroundings, they've been feeling breathless, all of those symptoms have been showing up, of course they're going to head to a doctor, but tell us also a little bit about what kind of tests, if at all, exist that are done specifically to detect this.
So basically, I think what is very important in these kind of patients is to have a detailed history. The doctor also needs to spend 5 minutes extra and get that detailed history of the environmental exposure, that what kind of exposure they've had in their recent past that could have precipitated this breathlessness and cough. Second testing is a CT scan of the chest. A high resolution CT scan is able to give you a very good diagnostic indications whether this could be hypersensitivity pneumonitis or not. Third is a test called a blood test, which we do a panel, which helps us diagnose if there has been an exposure or not, which is not so reliable, but yes, it does give you a good indication. Fourth, of course, is if nothing else works, then one could do a transbronchial lung biopsy, which again is a very simple procedure done under local anesthesia with a little bit of sedation, where you do a bronchoscopy. Bronchoscopy is like endoscopy of the stomach people get done. This is the endoscopy of the lungs, which is called bronchoscopy, and you could do a biopsy from inside. Then, of course, pulmonary function test, which again would tell you if there is any restriction in the lungs or not. PFT is able to differentiate between asthma and a restrictive lung disease. So these are the various tests that one can undergo. to reach a diagnosis. But again, a proper history is very, very essential. Exposure to any kind of pigeon droppings or anything else in the environment is very, very important to be known by the physician to reach a diagnosis.
And battling a bird fancier's disease, also Dr. Vivek Nangya, does it vary from person to person? What does your experience tell you? So for instance, somebody comes well in time, gets it treated, you're going to perhaps prescribe some steroids. What are the survival chances there? Because there are so many worrying reports that signal that it may eventually lead to total lung collapse too.
Right, absolutely correct. So I think what is important is to understand that if there are two stages, one is the inflammatory stage and the other is the fibrotic stage. And it depends in which stage the patient reaches us. So if it is in an inflammatory state where there's not much damage done to the lungs till then, one can start them on steroids, control the progression of the inflammation with steroids. But once fibrosis has set in, then you have very limited options. There's only one antifibrotic or two antifibrotics that are available to us, which can not reverse the fibrosis, they can only slow down the progression of the disease. And there are also certain disease-modifying agents that one would use. But please understand that the treatment options are very, very limited.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the option of lung transplant also is there. But again, at very few centers with not as good results as you would expect. So that's still a huge limitation there. So what is important always in any kind of hypersensitivity pneumonitis? I mean, like pigeon fanciers is one, there's so many others as well, like exposure to cotton fibers, to sugarcane, and all those things. Even dampness could result in hypersensitivity pneumonitis. But yes, what is important is to avoid these exposures as much as possible. Treatment options are very limited. Every individual may behave differently. There would be people who have go into a remission kind of a phase and remain static for years with certain degree of lung limited activity that is possible. While there would be others for whom it could be an acute disease where it could just rapidly progress and deteriorate and may not come under control despite all possible measures.
Dr. Vivek, would you call this a silent killer? Because so many people are unaware that this could happen to them. Pigeon droppings could be so harmful. In fact, so many are unaware of the kind of pigeon droppings in their immediate surroundings, in their immediate environment, because sometimes you have window ledges, for instance, at a certain height, so you don't typically end up cleaning it on a regular basis, so on and so forth. So what would be your suggestion to everyone watching this who's saying, how do we monitor our immediate surroundings to an extent that this is not going to be dangerous going forward for us?
So, pigeon droppings is still something that is visible as compared to so many other pollutants that are in the air that could be harming us silently. Of course, it is a silent killer for sure, but at the same time, it is visible to us. So this is something that we can definitely take care of ourselves. If you know that there are pigeon droppings on the balcony, just follow all the possible precautions. First of all is avoidance. Second is preventing the pigeons from sitting there and leaving the droppings behind. Because again, it's not just the droppings, as you also pointed out, the pigeon feathers can also harm the lungs. So what is important is avoidance of pigeons as much as possible. And not just pigeons, but any other bird droppings as well, which includes parrots. There are people who have parrots inside their houses like pets. They've also landed up in various kinds of complications that we've seen coming to us, again with the same cough, breathlessness, especially in children. It can be even more harmful.
And very quickly, Dr. Vivek, why is it so under-recognized? Is it because the pigeon population has shot up the way it has? We're looking at 150% increase in the population over the last 2 decades. Have you seen that translate to the number of patients who are coming to you with an HP?
Yeah, you're right actually. Though if you retrospectively, if you think, the number of patients has only been going up. But I think that's also because the awareness has gone up now. Earlier if you would have a patient who would come to you with breathlessness and you would diagnose it to be an interstitial lung disease, you would probably just, because we did not have the options of treatment available to us, you would just treat everybody random at a blanket with steroids and with some kind of a antifibrotic and a disease modifying agent. People would not be going into the detailed history of the exposure. Even the patients themselves would not give you that history because that awareness was not there. Now with increased awareness, increased diagnostic facilities available to us, and also increased in the number of pigeons, this disease is definitely becoming more and more common, and we are seeing it more often now for sure.
So you got to ensure that your immediate surroundings are foolproof. You know, you're meshing it up, you're going ahead with all precautions, and most importantly, cleaning your surroundings the right way. So get your masks on, wear your protective gloves while you're cleaning it. And like Dr. Vivek said, what's important is to ensure that you're cleaning it after pouring some water, let's say. So don't let it dry out and let it wash off on its own. Thank you so much, Dr. Vivek. It was lovely having you this morning. Thank you for simplifying that story for us. With that, we head into a very short break. Coming up next, though, we will be going across to our person of interest joining us this morning, Tamil Ponnu, and how she is taking over the internet in style. We'll talk about her fashion sense, how fashion is fun for her when she does it her way. Lots about her style, her attitude, and the ease with which she's pulling it all off.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Reliance Foundation chairperson Nita Ambani hailed Indian athletes for their best ever performance at the World Para Athletics in New Delhi that concluded on the 5th of October. India achieved its highest ever medal count tally of 22 with 6 gold medals. Hailing the star athletes, the Reliance Foundation chairperson said, and I quote, "Congratulations to all our para athletes for their outstanding performance at the World Para Athletics Championship with 6 gold, 9 silver and 7 bronze medals. India achieved its best ever medal tally of 22, a testament to our growing strength in parasport. Our 6 goals also mark a joint best record reflecting continued." Reliance Foundation chairperson Nita Ambani hailed Indian athletes for their best ever.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Where amid key talks in Egypt over Gaza peace plan, President Trump says, "I think we are doing very well. And I think Hamas has been agreeing to things that are very important."
He's been very positive. He's been very positive on the deal. Everybody is. I think every nation is. We have just about every nation working on this deal and trying to get it done. Something that you could say 3,000 years if you look at it in certain ways, or you could say centuries, but this is a deal that incredibly everyone just came together. They all came together. No, Israel's been great. They've all been good, Caitlin.
Over to you, Kangsha. Please help us understand that reportedly both delegations from both sides are reportedly now in Egypt. Does that mean that the deal would be finalized soon, or are the negotiations still underway?
Right, Shreya, there are a host of nitty-gritties which need to be hammered out, and perhaps this is just the beginning of another complicated, long-drawn negotiations. But as you heard what the US President had to say, Donald Trump, of course, exuding a lot of confidence and optimism, as he always has. And he's also talked about how, he's making it sound like the war in Gaza is already over and that Hamas and Israel have already reached upon a peace deal, which seems highly unlikely at the moment, given the kind of pressure that both sides are under. Many have questioned if Hamas has just given in because of the deadline that was given to them. Will they be disarming themselves is the moot question right now to be addressed as far as Hamas is concerned. We all know it's a militant organization and it has to give up arms, which is stated as a key demand in the peace plan proposed by the US President. They have maintained the strategic silence so far, even though they have indicated they will not be part of the Gaza governance. But more importantly, as far as Israel is concerned, that there's a fragmented political thought plaguing Israel. Many are of the view that the hostages should be released and that there should be a ceasefire. Majority of Israel doesn't want this war to go on. It has drained a lot of resources, most importantly lives, not just of all the people who died. Today we speak on a day which is marking October 7th, the anniversary of the deadly Hamas attack on Israel, which then began the war in Gaza Shia. So it's important to also highlight that there have been rallies taking place in Israel which have been calling out for an end to the war, for a release of all of those hostages. 48 of them are believed to be held by Hamas currently. 20 of them are believed to be dead. At the same time, on the other hand, you have the far right in Israel, which is exercising a lot of pressure on the Israeli Prime Minister. That includes his National Security Minister. That also includes his Finance Minister, who are pretty hawkish and far right. They do not want that Hamas, that the ceasefire should happen till hostages are completely released. They wanted that the hostage release should happen while Gaza is still under fire. At the same time, they want an annexation of the West Bank. Now, that is the red line for all Arab nations involved in these peace negotiations, as you rightly highlighted. Yes, talks have now shifted from Doha to Egypt, where the U.S. envoys for these peace talks are Steve Witkoff and Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, will also be joining these peace talks. But most importantly, it is the timing. Today is marking 2 years of that deadly attack of Hamas on Israel. And the war has not ended. Has Netanyahu achieved those two goals?
Welcome back. This morning on the Breakfast Club, we have someone who's become an unmistakable presence online. Subiksha Shivakumar is a model, creator and style voice who has built her own space. Equal parts, effortless, bold and deeply rooted. She has worked with the biggest names in fashion, but it's the way she owns her space on the internet that makes her stand out. A Tamil Ponnu with a distinct energy, Subiksha has turned authenticity into an aesthetic today. Look at those lovely visuals she's put out on her social media. Today we talked to her about what drives her work, how she sees beauty and style on her own terms, and why the internet just can't get enough of her. Good morning, Subiksha. Hope you're doing well.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, lovely seeing you. Let's start with basics. Subiksha, we're going to be talking to an internet sensation about her modeling experience. We're going to talk about, her makeup tips. But we first want to ask you what you're often labeled as, which is the ultimate Tamil Ponnu online. What does that phrase mean to you?
I mean, for those who don't know, Tamil Ponnu means Tamil girl or Tamil daughter. And I love that, being a daughter from Tamil Nadu, because it is the culture that raised me. It is where I get a lot of my style inspiration from. It is I love Tamil food. I love Tamil dance styles, the makeup, the styling, the way that they style their saris with beautiful earrings. And I actually do have a Tamil food brand as well to make it like the ultimate Tamil Ponnu.
Yeah. And we've seen you dressed, in your traditional attire while you're talking about your brand. So those are some lovely visuals and styling that you're giving us. But Subiksha, tell us how much of this style that you're talking about comes from your South Indian roots? How much of it is global influence? And for those unaware, there's a little bit of US that we're seeing here, a little bit of Chennai, a little bit of Bengaluru as well. So which one has had the most impact?
So I actually grew up the first half of my life in the States, and then I moved to Vellore, Tamil Nadu, and then I went to Bangalore for college, and now I'm in Bombay. I would say that as any Tamil girl growing up in the States and then moving to Vellore, or even in general, we learn, our mind is kind of colonialized in a way where we're taught to kind of hate our own culture for the longest part growing up. I felt that way. And then as I grew older and started really embracing my own roots and really loving myself, is when I started embracing my culture, really just making it my own. And that's what I do with my personal style. That's what I do with my makeup as well. It's like my name badge. This is who I am. And I want people to know this is my culture.
And what drove you to sort of explore that space, something that you'd perhaps not done, something that you were a little uncomfortable about? What prompted you to take that step, fully get into it, imbibe it, and then just talk about it as a way of life?
It was the lockdown, honestly. I just had a lot of free time and I had moved back home to Vellore, and just being there, really living in the culture. For the longest time, I tried to avoid it, but I wanted to try and create art. When you have nothing else to do and you're focused solely on expression, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to focus on expression, and for me, that's what beauty and fashion is. It is all about expression. It is a way to say, this is who I am. And when I started, I didn't just dip my toe in the water. I went in head first. I was like, I want to experiment the most that I possibly can. And without any fear of what people will say. I think I did face a little bit of that in the beginning, where a lot of people didn't really get it because it's such a difference. I didn't really experiment before, and I really wanted to make some noise in a way. And when the other people have their own opinions about your personal style or your makeup, it's also they have an opinion about you as a person. And initially, it does get to you a little bit, but after a point, it goes in one ear and out the other.
So, sort of parting ways from all the noise that's bringing your energy down. And that's what explains, all these videos that we've seen on social media, you being playful, experimental, unapologetically sexy, if I can put it that way. Subiksha, tell us what your idea behind beauty, your philosophy behind your beauty is. How do you define that? How do you see that terminology? It's very different for everyone. And you've been very vocal about how you embraced, for instance, your dark circles, your puffy eyes, and you thought that that doesn't really decide how beautiful I am or I'm not.
Absolutely.
So what led you to that thought process?
I started modeling when I was 18, and moving from Vellore, where there's not a lot of expression when it comes to expressive makeup or fashion. Then I moved to Bangalore, and that's when I started modeling for the first time. And being a part of the modeling industry, it is a little scary when you're 18 years old and everybody has a magnifying lens on your body, on how you should look, and their idea of what the beauty standard is. Dark circles, having dark knees, having big hips, these were all the things that were pointed out to me, and I was being told, you are ugly because of this. You will not get jobs because of this. And I think I fell for the propaganda in the beginning, but it is a part of who I am. Not just me, it is a part of my lineage. My father had it, his mother had it. They have dark circles. Everybody has dark circles. You have to get to a point where you realize that these things that have been passed down from generation to generation is just a part of who you are. And you can't allow somebody else who, with their idealized version of beauty, to tell you what makes you beautiful and what makes you not. And I think that just made me change everything up. It's just perspective. And once I started accepting myself, stopped feeling insecure about these things that make me who I am, the world followed. It all starts with you, honestly.
You owned your truth. Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you for being that inspiration this morning. Subiksha, when you're in the modeling career, when you're in this one line, you're often asked, how do you define or how do you draw the line between bold and over the top? In fact, you're labeled over the top in ways more than one on multiple occasions, especially from those outside of the industry. What are your thoughts there, and how do you look at this?
I would say I don't really believe in over the top. I don't think you can ever be too much. If you're too much, you're just in the wrong room. That's it. That's how I feel about it.
Okay, lovely. So that's not a concept. That doesn't exist for you. You do you do you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Subiksha, let's talk about your beauty rituals. So we've seen a lot of experimental makeup. We've seen those videos, and we're putting out every now and then some of those glimpses as well. What's that one South Indian beauty ritual you swear by that everyone who's watching this must take note of?
Every Saturday, without fail, growing up, my mom, we would have this beauty ritual where we take nallenna, which is gingerly oil, heat it up, add a little spices inside that, and you put it all over your skin, your hair, and you just marinate in it for an hour. Then, after that's done, you make the scrub out of besan and cream or milk, and you use that to scrub off the oil from your body. And that makes your skin so soft. And we did this every Saturday. Followed by, after you wake up, you do this, you have a late lunch. And we always had more korumbu, which is like curry with parpusali. It was just such a beautiful Saturday. You always look forward to it.
Okay, lovely. Let's talk about your experiences now so far. Tell us a little bit about the career you've had in modeling. One of the many shoots that are on top of your mind. So when I ask you which is the one shoot you're not going to forget about ever, which one is that, or is it the ones that you've been doing lately for your brand, because they're splendid to begin with?
I would say one shoot that I felt like the most myself wasn't actually a brand shoot. It was a personal shoot that I did. I was nominated for this award by Vogue versus the fashion, and I won in the creative category. And the outfit that I wore was so me. The entire team came together. We styled this, created this entire look. I did the hair and makeup for it. The entire team had the same idea. We wanted to make noise. We wanted to scream and show what India has to offer. And just the pictures came out amazing. The video came out amazing. I just couldn't be happier with that shoot. I think I'll always remember that. And also because my mom had come to Bombay, and it was her first time ever in the past 8 years of me modeling, for her to see me at a shoot actually. And she really, I was so happy that I made her so proud.
Okay, for all those who are aspiring to become models or content creators, you've modeled for big names like Manish Malhotra, Raw Mango, Chanel as well, but you're also a digital creator. So how do you see that line between, being a model and an influencer, and how do you balance it out? What do you give more importance and how?
I feel like there's an evident line between modeling and influencing. When you're modeling, it's like you're an actor, but for a still. You have to learn how to embody the designers, what they have in mind. You have to learn the body languages that apply to each particular brand, the emotions that come out for each particular brand. But when you're an influencer, you are the brand. And you have to just bring out your authentic self and try to embody that. So I think there's a big difference. I love both. I love to be my own brand and do my own looks and do my own shoot. But I also love to see myself in different shoots and how many avatars there possibly can be of Subiksha.
Would it be correct to say, Subiksha, that all your, walking into the airport and walking out of the airport looks, all your cocktail mixing, all of that has taken over your modeling photographs or projects, at least on your social media? Would it be correct to say that?
Yes, that is so true. I think ever since I started doing content creation, that's kind of taken the front seat and modeling takes a little bit of the back seat. But I try to bring it back when I'm doing my shoots, when I do my own personal shoots, because I don't want to lose touch of that. I love being a model. It's just so satisfying for me.
How much of what makes for good content, for all those consuming your content, is something you keep in mind when you're creating content? So is follower count, for instance, an important aspect to what you're feeding on your social media handle?
That's a good question. I think, having a higher follower count obviously helps with the brand deals and stuff. but it all matters about the quality of your followers. If it's all about intention at the end of the day. If you're trying to grow your following so you can inspire people and reach the right audience who will actually understand your art, or if you're just doing it to inflate your ego, there's it really depends on how you're utilizing your following and how you're garnering your audience. You could be a beauty creator and post one dance video, let's say, and then get 1 million followers overnight. But then when you go back to your beauty videos, the people who don't really understand beauty it won't really translate there. They won't really understand your art. You open up to a lot of hate comments as well. So yeah, it's all about intention, what you're trying to do with your following.
Subiksha, is there an interesting story that you can share on any of these interesting collabs, the ones we just spoke of, or Manish Malhotra, Raw Mango, anything on top of your mind that's going to be of a little interest to our viewers?
Oh my God. Actually, like when you said Manish Malhotra, I love him so much. When I first moved to Bombay, when I was, I think, 21, that was straight after the lockdown. I was considering I studied fashion design. I was gonna do that route, like become a designer, work under someone, corporate 9 to 5. But then I started doing beauty and I started doing fashion, and that just made me feel so alive. But I still was modeling, so I moved to Bombay. And once I got there, my first ever campaign was actually with Manish Malhotra. Within the first month of me moving there, I had gone to the casting, well, as a bunch of girlies did. Super nervous, have never worked with like a big designer before. He was there, he was so sweet, so welcoming. I was clearly very anxious there. And I didn't have a big portfolio either. I remember like walking and he asked to see my book. I didn't really have a book. So I showed him my Instagram and I showed a little bit of my my makeup looks that I was doing, my editorial stuff, and I got booked for the job. And I will always remember that core memory. And I've done multiple campaigns with him after that, and he's just been so welcoming and so sweet.
And what was your digital presence like, if I may ask, back then? Since you spoke of showing your Instagram profile to him.
I think I had spent the entire lockdown posting every single day multiple like makeup looks. So that's all I had on my feed, with editorial looks. And I didn't have more than 8,000 followers, I think, at the time, but I had a passion and a vision.
Okay. Subiksha, let's talk about your future. What's that one collab or campaign that you're dying to do? You're still waiting for that one call.
I would love to do the L'Oreal Paris fashion show with Aishwarya Rai. That I would love to do. I'm putting it out there.
Okay, lovely. I hope they're hearing. I hope they're hearing you. Okay. Now, Subiksha, let's talk about your starter pack. So, the Tamil Ponnu starter pack. 3 things it must have. We'll leave our audiences with that tip.
Okay. Definitely a bindi, a pottu. You need that. Jimmicky, like a nice dangling earring. I'm not wearing one right now because my ears kind of hurt. And a baddie lip combo. I love this one lip combo that my mom has. It's like a dark brown liner and a maroon lipstick. And she like loves her lip combos. So yeah, that would be my starter pack.
Okay, and one last thing, that perhaps those wondering, the fact that you're from Tamil Nadu, sometimes there are families that don't have a brilliant reaction to you wanting to step into the modeling space. Did you go through something like that? Because every time we speak to someone who's in the glam world, a lot of them talk about the initial reactions that they came across from their families. What was it like for you? What was the journey like when you decided that you're going to do this and not your 9 to 5?
It was a little bit of a shock initially because my plan was to do my master's and like study, and I think that's what my mom would have also loved. So convincing her, it took a little bit of time, but my mom, I am so blessed to come from a very accepting family. My mom has always been so hardworking. She's always like, whatever it is you want to do, make sure you do it to the fullest, whatever it is. So like convincing her that this is the path that I wanted to do, I had to obviously post a lot more and just show that this is something that I'm passionate about, and that just came naturally. Because when I want something, I really fight for it.
And your
Yeah.
mother really has been a power of the entire journey, isn't it? I mean,
100%.
we've seen her make appearances with you through and through. We've seen her take part in all these small little gatherings when you're hosting
Yeah.
people in your inner circle, in your own
Yes.
house. Lovely. Subiksha, thank you so much. Thank you for that wonderful conversation. Thank you for taking out the time. We'll reconnect soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, on that note, let's now shift our focus to talk about the hype surrounding Kantara Chapter 1. How the hype is very much there. And let's talk about the prequel to the 2022 blockbuster Kantara Chapter 1 that is dwelling deep into mythological lore, bringing to life ancient stories and traditions. It was made on a reported budget of 125 crore rupees, and the film has been getting a lot of positive word of mouth publicity. Will it be another milestone in Kannada cinema? We'll get you more details on what the industry is making of its success so far. Take a look.
Hello everyone, welcome to News 18. I am Titash Chaudhary in conversation with Rishabh Shetty and Rukmini Vasant. Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
गुड आप कैसे हो?
ऑल गुड सर, सबसे पहले तो मैं ये बोलना चाहती हूँ कि मैंने कल ही फिर से कांतारा देखा है, जो फर्स्ट फिल्म है. आई वांटेड टू जस्ट जॉग माय मेमोरी बिफोर आई स्पीक टू यू.
अभी ज्यादा करंट करके बात कर रहे हैं.
नहीं, मैं ये पूछ रही हूँ कि जो कांतारा का सक्सेस था बहुत ज़्यादा ओवरवेलमिंग था. यू नो, यू जस्ट स्पोक अबाउट विनिंग द नेशनल अवार्ड फॉर इट. ऑल्सो इट्स आई थिंक वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट हिट्स ऑफ द कन्नड़ा फिल्म इंडस्ट्री. तो वो जो है अभी जो ये फिल्म रिलीज हो रही है चैप्टर 1, आई नो कि द आइडिया इज टू मेक अ गुड फिल्म, बट कहीं ना कहीं वो चीज़ दिमाग में है कि पहले फिल्म जैसा अच्छा बनाना है, उतना जो ऑडियंस एक्सपेक्टेशन है. समटाइम्स डज इट फील लाइक प्रेशर?
नो, कभी भी वापस में जो पहले कांतारा किया था वैसा फिल्म नहीं कर सकता मैं.
यू नो दिस
100%. कुछ भी नहीं रिपीट नहीं कर सकते हम. जो होता है फिल्म जो हम नहीं कर सकते, फिल्म बनता है जो हो गया. अभी ये दूसरा है. इसमें ये फिल्म है ना, ये ऐसा फिल्म में नेक्स्ट में कभी नहीं कर सकता. तो आगे का कितना भी करूं वो रिपीट नहीं कर सकता. वो जो कहानी है, वो जो क्या बोलने जा रहे हैं हम, उसमें क्या एफर्ट डाल रहे हैं, वो उसमें एक पैकेज होके आएगा ना, वो एक ही बार होता है
जी.
जो दूसरा कर सकते हैं, दूसरा तरीके से, दूसरा इमोशंस सब, लेकिन वही सेम वर्ड का दूसरा कहानी बता रहे हैं हम.
बिल्कुल. पर दिमाग में ये चीज कभी थॉट आता है कि विल इट बी एज बिग एज द फर्स्ट फिल्म? ये थॉट आता है?
वो तो ऑडियंस बोल रहे हैं, तो मुझे कैसे पता है?
पर आप तो डायरेक्टर हो ना, कहीं ना कहीं
डायरेक्टर होके मैं कहानी को जस्टिस कर सकता हूँ. मेरे जो कैरेक्टर्स जो बनाया है, मेरा जो कहानी में जो कौन कौन आ रहा है, वो कैरेक्टर जस्टिफाई करना चाहिए. जो कहानी को जस्टिफाई करना है पहले, तो वो मेरा काम है एज ए डायरेक्टर, एज ए स्टोरी टेलर. मैं मेरा कहानी जो क्या सोचा था मैं, जो क्या बोलना चाह रहा हूँ ऑडियंस को, वो प्रॉपरली कन्वे हो रहा है कि नहीं
जी,
ये होगा मेरा. तो जो इतना बड़ा सक्सेस दिया है उन्होंने, वो एक बड़ा रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है. तो वही रूप से हम ज़्यादा एफर्ट डाल देते हैं. अच्छा, इतने किए, अभी इतना बड़ा स्केल के फिल्म करने के लिए जो अपॉर्चुनिटी जो हुम्बाड़े ने जो किया है, सेम टाइम ये पूरा क्रेडिट्स ऑडियंस को जाता है. पहले कन्नड़ा ऑडियंस को जाता है, बाद में ऐसे ही एक के बार तेलुगु, तमिल, मलयालम, हिंदी एंड बाहर भी
जी.
ये सब पूरा क्रेडिट्स ऑडियंस को चला जाता है.
कांतारा इज लार्जली, जो हमने पहली फिल्म में भी देखी, इट्स अ मैन्स वर्ल्ड है ना. दिस मैन, यू नो, हु इज ट्राइंग टू फाइट फॉर हिज राइट्स, फॉर हिज विलेजेस राइट्स. Now you come into the picture. आपके कैरेक्टर के बारे में ज़्यादा कुछ पता नहीं है रुक्मिणी, but it looks very interesting. How do you, in a man's world, how do you describe this feminine energy and how important it is to rethink our women's roles in these films?
I think the film also does explore that in its own capacity. तो मैं ज़्यादा नहीं बोल पाऊँगी उसके बारे में. ये तो कह सकती हूँ कि फिल्म में इस मुद्दे का थोड़ा एक्सप्लोरेशन हुआ है और बाद में शायद चर्चे होंगे, तो that will be exciting to see. It's always nice when you make a film जो themes है उस पिक्चर में, बाहर आते ही लोग उस पे चर्चे करते हैं, तो अच्छी बात होती है आई थिंक टू हैव दोज कॉन्वर्सेशंस. लाइक आई सेड मैं ज़्यादा नहीं बोल पाऊंगी, लेकिन आपने अगर ट्रेलर देखा होगा तो ये एक बहुत ही गहरी कैरेक्टर लिखी हुई है. सो आई थिंक दैट इट विल बी रियली एक्साइटिंग फॉर पीपल टू सी this sort of character with agency within this universe.
Sure.
So yeah.
Hello.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Where amid key talks in Egypt over Gaza peace plan, President Trump says, I think we are doing very well. And I think Hamas has been agreeing to things that are very important.
He's been very positive. He's been very positive on the deal. Everybody is. I think every nation is. We have just about every nation working on this deal and trying to get it done. Something that you could say 3,000 years if you look at it in certain ways, or you could say centuries, but this is a deal that incredibly everyone just came together. They all came together. No, Israel's been great. They've all been good, Caitlin.
Over to you, Kangsha. Please help us understand that reportedly both delegations from both sides are reportedly now in Egypt. Does that mean that the deal would be finalized soon, or are the negotiations still underway?
Right, Shreya, there are a host of nitty-gritties which need to be hammered out, and perhaps this is just the beginning of another complicated, long-drawn negotiations. But as you heard what the US President had to say, Donald Trump, of course, exuding a lot of confidence and optimism, as he always has. And he's also talked about how, he's making it sound like the war in Gaza is already over, and that Hamas and Israel have already reached upon a peace deal, which seems highly unlikely at the moment, given the kind of pressure that both sides are under. Many have questioned if Hamas has just given in because of the deadline that was given to them. Will they be disarming themselves is the moot question right now to be addressed as far as Hamas is concerned. We all know it's a militant organization and it has to give up arms, which is stated as a key demand in the peace plan proposed by the US President. They have maintained the strategic silence so far, even though they have indicated they will not be part of the Gaza governance. But more importantly, as far as Israel is concerned, there's a fragmented political thought plaguing Israel. Many are of the view that the hostages should be released and that there should be a ceasefire. Majority of Israel doesn't want this war to go on. It has drained a lot of resources, most importantly lives, not just of all the people who died. Today we speak on a day which is marking October 7th, the anniversary of the deadly Hamas attack on Israel, which then began the war in Gaza, Shreya. So it's important to also highlight that there have been rallies taking place in Israel which have been calling out for an end to the war, for a release of all of those hostages. 48 of them are believed to be held by Hamas currently. 20 of them are believed to be dead. At the same time, on the other hand, you have the far right in Israel, which is exercising a lot of pressure on the Israeli Prime Minister. That includes his National Security Minister, that also includes his Finance Minister, who are pretty hawkish and far right. They do not want...
Okay, welcome back. We now bring to you a special section on financial markets powered by Money Control Pro, Money Control's premium destination for investing and business insights. Let's start with the markets first. GIFT Nifty is indicating a muted opening for Indian stock markets. US stock markets close higher on buying in shares of technology companies. Asian stock markets open higher, led by Japanese markets. And gold prices are also at record high amid US government shutdown and political uncertainty in France. Let's shift our focus to some sectors in particular. Global iron ore prices have rebounded from $93 to $104 per ton. most iron ore players are seeing a jump in production. In the user industry of domestic steel has also seen consumption rise by 8.2% year-on-year in the first 5 months of financial year 26. And prices of domestic iron ore are also increasing. Are good times ahead for iron ore miners? We leave you with that question, but do log into Money Control Pro to find out more about the iron ore sector and other actionable insights on markets. Well, that's all we could pack for you in this edition of the Breakfast Club. Thanks for tuning in. Tomorrow is another episode, another very interesting conversation lined up. Don't forget to tune in at 8.
So you've seen the big arc lights here, the flashy cameras, but beyond all of this, journalism is all about hard work. So if you have it in you to make a name for yourself in this hyper-competitive industry, then let CNN News 18 be your platform.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Where amid key talks in Egypt over Gaza peace plan, President Trump says, I think we are doing very well. And I think Hamas has been agreeing to things that are very important.
He's been very positive. He's been very positive on the deal. Everybody is. I think every nation is. We have just about every nation working on this deal and trying to get it done. Something that you could say 3,000 years if you look at it in certain ways, or you could say centuries, but this is a deal that incredibly everyone just came together. They all came together. No, Israel's been great. They've all been good, Caitlin.